Fantastic. We have made it. I'm going to move us over a little bit so I have our microphone. You can actually hear me. Okay. So this essentially is a I say that. Yep, here we are. This essentially is a live stream to help you with some revision. So let's make sure that we have everything on here that we need. Now, I promised that I would send this to a few people because we said that we would make sure that everyone had access. Now, what I'm going to do throughout the whole of this session is to just kind of walk through some of the basics for things like the coding aspects. This will be, there we go. Let's just pop that out. This will be me going through your questions, so please do ask me questions as we go. If you are watching on the Facebook page, then if you do want to add a question, please do put something on there. However, I will see it quicker if you put it onto the YouTube stream. So please do follow that YouTube link and pop over and say hello. Okay, there we go. Fantastic. Okay, so we have pin chat, we have live, we have everything there. Fantastic. Okay, so let's get cracking. So one of the first things I have been asked is whether we can have a look at arrays, because arrays is something that's going to almost certainly pop up in the exams. So there are a few things that you want to make sure that you've done if you are looking at going through that paper 2, specifically that first section. Okay, so let's start off. I'm going to pop this over here. I'm just going to make sure that everybody can hear me. I'm going to unmute myself, which is a terrible thing to do on a live stream. Yep, there we go. Let's start off by looking at some of the things that we could do for an array. So one of the things that you might be asked is to identify a hello. So one of the things you might be asked to do is identify a data structure. If they use the word data structure, that is that's an array. So let's put this up here. Data structure is an array. So if you've been learning lists or you've been learning arrays, data structure is exactly the same. It's the same thing. And if you are looking at so the task, now I want to be really careful about what I put on YouTube and what I put out live before the exam. So I do need to make sure that everything is sort of well above board and well within the exam board rulings and everything else. So I'm going to start off by looking at an array and how you can use an array to save data. And very specifically, now one thing to remember, 2-dimensional arrays this October is not required, not for the iGCSE for CIE. However, if you want to use 2D arrays, that's absolutely fine. You're not going to lose any marks. So let's start off by picking out, say, a list of names. And that list of names, all of those people may well have ages. So this is like a list of people. So here, I'm going to start off by creating names. Now, in this case, we've been asked to actually get that data. So here, if you do names equals open close brackets, that is basically an empty array. It's an array that has nothing in it at the moment. We were told that it was an array of a certain length. So what I'm going to do is at the same time as everything on here, I'm going to see if I can add some extra annotations as well. So if I move my code slightly, I should also, there we go, I should also be able to show you the pseudocode at the same time. So let's pop open a whiteboard, and then what I'll do is I'll pop the whiteboard in front, we'll look at them at the same time. There we go. So if I pull this over here, there we go, that's going to look really, really odd together, but we'll pull that across and then you can see the whiteboard at the same time. I think that's about as far as I can make it go. Okay. There we go. Okay, so if I wanted to declare an array, I might start off with declare. You are declaring that this exists. Names. And then as an array, and say it was 1 to 10. You could say 0 to 9, or you could say 1 to 10 of, I suppose this is a string because it's names. So you can see there, names equals open close brackets in Python, whereas in pseudocode you are declaring that this exists. So there it is an array called names as an array which is this length of this data type. So a little bit different on there, but no different in terms of logic. So if we go back into our Python, we can now go and get those values from our user. So our user is going to input values. So if I'm going to input values, what I can do is I can say, while my user has not finished entering the data maybe, or I might even use a for loop to say forever you have to do it 10 times. In the case of this year's tasks, they want them to keep entering until they're done. So let's put these in and say while end equals false. We are not done. Notice on that when I'm doing this in Python, capital F. So while end is the same as false. And then a colon at the end of everything. So end is false, while end is false, then what I'm going to do is to ask my user to input their name. So I'm going to call this temp name because CIE is really big on making sure that you use meaningful names, meaningful values in your coding. So temp name equals input. So we're going to get this from the user. They are inputting this data. Notice this goes like a bluey purple. I think it's purple if you're using idle. If you see a purple word or a blue word, use brackets. We're going to open up double quotes because this prompt is a string. So input, please enter your name. I'm going to give them a gap at the end just to make it nice and easy. Close that down. And then what I want to do is once they've entered their name, I want them to add that to the end of the array. The downside of having an array in Python is that it sort of has any number of lengths. So it's not a true static array. A static array basically has a set length. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say temp name input. So that goes into a variable. And then I'm going to append it to the end. Appending quite literally is at the end of something or adding to the end of something. Think about your appendix. Your appendix is at the end of your intestines. An appendix at the end of a book. It is something on the end. So in this case, I'm going to say names, which is the list, dot append. And then I'm going to open up brackets and I'm going to say what I'm appending. And that is this temporary name. Now what I'm going to do to show you how this works is I'm going to then print. And I'm going to print the whole of that array. Now at this point, I haven't written anything to stop that while loop from running. So I've actually created an infinite loop. I'm going to run it first and then I'm going to run through the pseudocode. So please enter your name. I'll put my name in there. And you can see now I have an array with one name at the beginning. Let's have a look in the chat. I have Jack in the chat. So therefore, please enter the name, Jack. And now you can see it's appended Jack's name to the end of that chat. The end of the array, because each time we go round the loop, append just adds to the end of your list. Now in pseudocode, that's going to look a little different. So let's have a look. We also need to do a while. Now notice on here, I'm going to do this in capital letters. You don't necessarily need to do your pseudocode in capital letters, but what this is it is signposting. What you are doing is you are shouting. That's so cool. You are shouting at the examiner, please give me the marks. I understand what I'm doing. This is where I want you to give me marks. So by adding in like capital letters for your key terms, really helpful. So declare names as an array. It is 0 to 9. We have 10 names. While end is false. I forgot to put the end. I need to declare end. There we go. Let's do that now. Declare end as... Oh, let's put this out to the chat. Declare end. What's the data type that we have here? It is only true or false. So this one here, we have declare end as, and this is a Boolean. Spelt in a really weird way. Boolean is Charles Boole came up with this idea that you can take anything in maths and turn it into either true or false. And those types of data are actually named after Charles Boole. So it is a Boolean value. So we're going to say while end equals false. Notice in this one that we have a single equals, and there's a reason for that. In pseudocode, our temp name is going to take the value of, it uses this left pointing arrow. So temp name takes the value of the user's input. Now in order to get the user's input, we have to tell them what to do. Now Python does that all in one line. Unfortunately, we have to do this in two. So we're going to output, please enter name. I think I put a colon there as well. Then temp name takes the value of the input. You can then use that names.append because that's absolutely fine to have in pseudocode. So names.append, or you could do names and then like a counter. I'm going to do .append in this one, but I will show you how to do the other one as well. Okay, and then instead of printing, we are outputting. and we want to output the whole thing. The other thing that's different with pseudocode is that when you open a while loop, you also have to end it. So this is called scope. Let's put that there. There we go. Look, while all the way down there. There's the scope of the while statement. Now, normally what you do, and you can actually see this on the code, is that you indent. And if you indent, then you are showing that these lines of code are inside the while loop. In pseudocode, you don't necessarily have to indent, although I would definitely recommend it. But by having a beginning and an end while, that's really going to help. Okay, so we have a name. We have the ability to enter a name, but when we want to stop, we need to have our user identify that they're done. So in this case, I'm going to carry on printing names because I think it's quite useful. I'm going to get them to tell me whether they want to finish. So here, let's call this finish, or spelling it right, finish equals. Now this is going to be another input. Do you want to continue? And then often what you can do is you can just do yes or no. Notice that space at the end. It just makes things a little easier. If they say yes, so if finish, oh dear, equals is the same as y. If they do, then we want to end. So then end equals, one equals, because we're assigning, end equals true. Now you could just have like end is a string and it says yes, and if they type in yes then it finishes, but this is slightly better because this is called a flag, and you're using your Boolean values. So in this case it's going to carry on until they say stop. The other thing you can do in here, and this is is called sanitation rather than validation. Validation makes sure that it's within a set of rules. So is it a number? Does it have more than one character? Have they left it blank? So like a presence check. Sanitation automatically corrects things for us. So one of the things you could do here is to look out for them putting in like a capital Y. So they still want to say yes. Oh, you've done this before. Fantastic. So yeah, if you have a capital Y, you want to make sure that you bring it down to lowercase. So I'm going to run this. Please enter name. There I am. I'm going to use, are you done? No. Please enter name again. Let's put Jack in there again. Are you done? And I'm going to put capital Y. And it continues because a capital Y is not the same as a lowercase y. Let's run that one more time just to make sure that with the actual values that we're expecting, it does actually work. So there we go. There's one. Let's continue. Oh, there we go. So do we want to continue lowercase y? Ends the program because there's no more code. So down here, what we're going to do is we're going to use a thing called .lower. Now .lower will take a capital and it will automatically translate it into its lowercase letter. That means that you don't have to then reject them for just putting in a capital letter. So if you can fix it for them, you want to. Okay, so one of the things that they have asked us to do is validate. Now they might ask you to validate something, so remember set of rules. If it's a name, making sure that it is not blank. So in this case, before we do this names.append, we want to make sure that whatever they've written is actually valid, is okay. So in this case, they can't have a blank name, or they can't have a name that's just one letter. So what we're going to do is we're going to use another while loop. So if you have a while loop inside a while loop, it's called a nested while loop. It's just because it's inside another one. So we're going to say while temp name. We want to get the length of temp name. So we don't want it to be blank and we don't want it to be one character. So we're going to use len. So while the len, that will return how long it is, of temp name is less than or equal to. So when you get those ones, when you get the less than or equal to, more than or equal to, you actually write it as you say it. So that's a useful one if you get really stuck in the exam. Less than or equal to, more than or equal to, it is exactly as you say it. So while len, temp name, is less than or equal to 1, then we want to output something and we want them to do it again. Easy way of doing this, not so easy in the exam because obviously you can't copy and paste. I'm going to take that line there where they had to input it the first time. Name too short. Please try again. So in this case, the name is too short. Please try again. And we can, then what that will do is it will just keep repeating and repeating and repeating until we get it right. So if they ask you to validate, it's always going to be a while loop. So let's pull this up here. I'm going to pull that so you can see just this little bit here. That's what we're testing. Right, so let's leave it blank. Name is too short. Please try again. Fine. You can have one letter. Name is too short. Please try again. Hi. That was okay because the length was 2. Do you want to continue? Yes. I might have got a logic error. Now at this stage, this is the kind of thing that you might be asked to look out for. There are some of these really special questions in paper 2 where you have to find the 4 errors. And finding those 4 errors quite often means looking through and testing your way through the code. If you haven't used trace tables for a while, this is a good time to just kind of brush up on them a little bit. So in this case, it said, do you want to continue? And I said yes, and then it stopped. So when you are looking for something in those questions where it says find the 4 errors, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be like a misspelling or it's going to be a syntax error, so something wrong with the spelling or the grammar. In this case, it's a logic error because it's doing something we're not expecting it to do. So if we press stop, what we actually want to do is to say if finish is no. Do you want to continue? No. Then we can end. Let's run that one more time. Oh, there we go. Please enter name. Nothing. Fair enough. N. Okay. We tried hi before. Do you want to continue? Yes. Please enter your name. There we go. There's another one. Do you want to continue? Nope. And it stops. Now at this point, what we have is we have a single one-dimensional array. Now with that single one-dimensional array, that's all very well, but you also need to be able to take some other data from your user. Now, one of the nice things about this is you can take that data inside the same loop. So say we had names and, I don't know, ages. I'm aware that obviously for different areas, especially with the current exams, you've got the ones with the planks, you've got another one with the car parking. So with the car parking, imagine you've got spaces and a name because that person is booking one. And registration plates. The registration plate is a really good one to look at for validating. So here I'm going to put ages because, again, this is just going to be a nice array where we have somebody with a name and an age. So what this is called is a parallel array. It's a bit like using a two-dimensional array. It's just that you've got two and they work together. So here, age, this is parallel to the names array. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw this out to start off with. So if you imagine we had some names at the top, and I'm going to do this in an actual list. So remember, we want to start counting at 0. If we count at 0, that's where the computer starts from. So we don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We actually go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we had, I'm going to make some names up now. That was number 0. The second one we enter, which this thing here, this is the index. Think about the index in a book, tells you where to go. Index in an array tells you where the item of data is. We've used Jack all the way through, so let's keep going with that. Number 2, which is our third item, we're going to stick in, so Seth. Number 3, I should use Bean for posterity because Bean used to be in all of my my lessons last year. They are now in the A-level lessons. And they pop onto a lot of my YouTube videos as a student who's learning. So you all see some of them in some of the other videos. Now, what we have, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, or 0, 1, 2, 3 if you're counting in indexes. So this is our names array. And then over here we can then do our age array. Now our age array is going to be in parallel. So item 0 is going to relate to item 0 in names. So if you get the age array and you find out what the index is, you can use it to find out what the age is. So I'm going to make some, so 16, I'm going to go 15 and 14, and then just kind of go down the list. So we've made up some ages, we've made up some names, and these are now in parallel here. And that means that names 0, that's going to output Holly, if I can write. And then age 0, that's going to output 21. We're going to test this theory by doing the same over here. So we ask them, please enter a name. We've then done names append. Now this is this important bit. So we've already done this. We're printing names. Now before we print names, I'm going to add a little bit of space. And then I'm going to have temp age, because this is the temporary input for their age. Now, some people would do an int input here because they're automatically turning it into an integer. But because I want to add some validation as well, I'm going to just take it as text, because everything that you input from Python is automatically a string. And there's a really nice validation trick that you can do. So please enter the age. So if you're asked for an integer, this is a good one for you to use. So here we've got temp age is an input, please enter age, and we're going to use the same while loop. But instead of saying, is it longer than this? So we did a length check. Oh, let's put that up there. That was a length check. we're going to do a while loop that is a type check. We're going to check that this is actually a number. So while, and then what we can do is we can go temp age dot is numeric. Now, is numeric is a built-in function to Python to say, is this something I can turn into a number? And it will return a Boolean value, return true or false. So while is numeric is false. While it is not a number, I'm going to tell them it's wrong. Age must be a number. Ah, right, so you were using a while true statement. So while true is a shortening of while true equals true. And true will always equal true. So it's basically, it's like creating this, this infinite loop that has no ability to end. So you want to try and do, while this variable is this value. So in this case, while temp age is numeric, while it's returning false, keep asking them something. Or in this case, while the length of temp name is less than or equal to 1. That's known as a Boolean condition. So we're going to keep doing this again and again and again until they get it wrong. Until they get it right. And then I'm going to do two things. Firstly, I'm going to turn it into a number. Then I'm going to append it to the array. So turning it into an integer is casting. So here, temp age. Now this is an interesting one because Python lets you get away with this. Initially, temp age is a string, and then when you give it an integer, temp age becomes an integer. Not many languages do that. So temp age equals the int version we are casting of itself. It's now a number. If it wasn't a number, we wouldn't be able to do things like adding to it or using it in any kind of calculation. So then we're going to go age dot append. Probably should have called that ages. And we're going to put in temp age. So that section is going to take in the name. This section is going to take in the age, and they're now in parallel because they're being added at the same time, and we're extending the array bit by bit like this. So I could print names, and I could, let's print age, and then we can ask if we want to continue. So this is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So let's put that there so you can see the code for temp age. And we're going to run this. So please enter a name. So let's see if we can get it wrong. In fact, no, let's put the right values in first, and then we'll start playing with the incorrect ones. Okay, so in our planning, we said that was going to be 21. And you can see there, first item is Holly in the top array. Second one says 21. Do you want to continue? Yep, let's add the next one in there. We had Jack, and we said 16. And now we've got one, name, age, and they all match each other. Let's add one more. I think we had Seth next. What did we say? We said 15 for that one, didn't we? So you've now got an array of names and an array of ages, and they match each other. Okay, there's one last thing that you want to do, which is going to, I think, be really helpful for making sure that you understand arrays for, specifically for the exam. Fantastic. And that's to actually find your index. So in this case, let's go back to here. And say I didn't know that any of this was in this particular place. So I'm just going to get rid of this bit here. And I'm going to say, well, I've got an array. So once I've actually created it and say I'm done, and say I wanted to go and find the age of somebody who I knew their name, but I didn't know what their age was. So I'm going to ask for, say, Seth in this case. I'm going to input this and I'm going to find the index. So I'm going to need to look inside the names array. In the names array, I need to find Seth. And that is going to find the index. And then I can use that index in the age array. And this is why parallel arrays are really, really helpful. So what I'm really doing here, just to make it a little easier, let's make sure I've got the right colour there, is saying I want to find Seth. Right, so go all the way through names. It's going to go Holly, no, Jack, no, Seth. Oh, found it. There we go. And then it's going to say the index of Seth is 2. And therefore, at position 2 in the age array is the value 15. So in your code, once you've added all of this information, right at the very end, we've finished. We're going to go all the way back to the left. Then we're going to ask them, who do you want to find? So let's do select. Yes, I don't think that's a keyword. Equals. Oh, search. Let's call it search. There. Equals. This is user input. We want to get our user to input who they want to look for. Who do you want to find? Bit of a space at the end to make it easier. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to find the index. Index looks like it might be a keyword. So let's call this person index equals. So I'm going to use the list. So we're going to look in the names array dot index. So you can literally use dot index to find what position they're at. And then you're going to say what it is that you're looking for. And that is the person they have asked to search for. Person index is now going to hold the position that they're at in that list. And then we're going to print, and I'm going to do a thing called concatenation. Concatenation, I'm just going to pop this up the top for you. Concatenation literally means taking strings and sticking them together. So here I'm going to put search, which is the name that they asked for, comma, that's the glue that sticks these things together, is, I might need to put some spaces in there, but we'll come back, comma again. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go age, and then in the square brackets, we're going to use our index. Person index, now I did just copy and paste that. It's always worth doing. Is person index, another bit of glue, years old. Full stop and finish. The person you search for, the name, is the age, years old. And we only found out their age by looking for the index in the other parallel array. So we're going to do it all again. This is why we save data into things like files, because you don't want to have to write this thing every single time. Writing to a file is a separate section, so we are going to just focus on arrays. Okay, so please enter name in the order we were planning. There we go. One of them. Do you want to continue? Yes. I'm going to move this up so you can see it a little bit better. There we go. We have Jack there, and we had 16. There we go. So those are two. There's our parallels. Do you want to continue? Absolutely. We had Seth. We just went down the list at that point. And we're going to add in our last one. There we go. Okay, so we're done. Do you want to continue? No. But then we've written these last 3 lines on line 29, 30 and 31. Who do you want to find? So in our planning, we wanted to find Seth, and it should output that Seth is 15. So you have to make sure it's typed exactly as it is in the list. And we have Seth is 15 years old because it finds the index of the name and then it goes to the parallel item inside that list. Okay, so I said we would spend about 40 minutes today just looking at some of the techniques for arrays, how to add data into an array, how to read from an array, and also how to make sure that you are appending correctly. And we managed to do a little bit of validation as well. Whew, that's an awful lot for a Sunday evening. Okay, I'm really glad it was helpful. Because it's a live video, it will remain as a video on the YouTube channel, so you can always come back and watch it. Always helpful if you give it a like. I feel really weird saying things like that. Oh, please like the video. Yeah, this will be here for as long as you need it. Please do come back. If you have any questions, just drop me a message. You can drop me a message on the video, and it pops up as an email to me as well. Okie dokie. Right, I shall see you all soon, and best of luck with the exams. Okay, take care.